Good evening. Good evening. It is March 5th, and we are diving right in this evening. I am here to encourage you this Women's History Month with the story of an inspirational woman. This story is actually one of my favorite stories in the Bible. Like, entire book is right up there with okay, so I have two favorite books in the Bible. One is Genesis. I love Genesis. And then the other is Ruth. And tonight we're going to start reading Ruth because Ruth is loaded with inspirational women. Well, at least two of them, right? The book of Ruth, just to give you a quick synopsis, it's a story of two women. One is older, one is younger, and you kind of get to see their lives side by side. Now, if you're looking at the title of tonight's video, it's Identifying Hope in the Darkest of Times. And as women, we navigate different things at different times in our lives. And so I thought I would bring this story forward because this story depicts, like I said, an older woman and a younger woman, and they're in different seasons of their lives. And then one of them is loaded and full of hope. The other one is like, oh, get out my face. She is just absolutely bitter. But I just love to see the dynamic between these women, and I wanted to bring it forward for the sake of your encouragement. So tonight we're going to dive in and we're going to go through chapter 1 of the book of Ruth. I'm going to read it for you, and then we're going to look at some things in it, right? But I'm going to read it like a story. So hopefully, as I read, you get to see just some of the emotion in the story as well. And then, like I said, as we have time, we'll discuss some of it. All right. So, Ruth chapter 1, and I'm reading from King James. But of course, I'm going to Razify it so that we could bring it into today's scenarios. Okay. Ruth chapter 1. Now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled that there was a famine in the land. And a certain man of Bethlehem, Judah, went to sojourn in the country of Moab, he and his wife and his two sons. And the name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife, Naomi. And the name of his two sons, Mahlon and Chilion, Ephrathites of Bethlehem, Judah. And they came into the country of Moab, and continued there. And Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left, and her two sons. And they took them wives of the women of Moab. The name of the one was Orpah, and the name of the other Ruth. And they dwelled there about 10 years. And Mahlon and Chilion died also, both of them. And the woman was left of her two sons and her husband. Womp, womp, womp. Then she arose. She said, look, ugh, this is frustrating. This is sad. Then she arose with her two daughters-in-law that she might return from the country of Moab. For she had heard in the country of Moab how the Lord had visited his people in giving them bread. Wherefore she went forth out of the place where she was. She said, it's time to go get y'all stuff. We going. Wherefore she went forth out of the place where she was, and her two daughters-in-law with her. And they went on the way to return to the land of Judah. And Naomi said unto her two daughters-in-law, go, return each of you to your mother's house. The Lord deal kindly with you, as ye have dealt kindly with me and with the dead. The Lord deal kindly with you, as ye have dealt with the dead and with me. The Lord grant you that ye may find rest, each of you, in the house of her husband. Naomi's like, listen, Y'all just go back to your parents, get married again. I know your husband's died and you've been so kind to stick around with me, but go ahead, go back to your parents, get new husbands, have a nice life. Naomi is like, I'm going back to where I'm from. Y'all have a nice life. Then she kissed them, and they lifted up their voice and wept. And they said unto her, surely we will return with thee unto thy people. And Naomi said, turn again, my daughters. You ain't finna go with me. Why will ye go with me? And there yet any more sons in my womb, that they may be your husbands? Turn again, my daughters, go your way, for I am too old to have an husband. If I should say, I have hope, if I should have an husband this night, and should also bear sons, would ye tarry for them till they were grown? Would y'all stick around? If I had sons tonight, would y'all stick around until they were grown? Would ye stay for them having, would ye stay for them from having husbands? Nay, my daughters, for it grieveth me much for your sakes that the hand of the Lord is gone out against me. And they lifted up their voice and wept again. And Orpah kissed her mother in law, but Ruth cleaved unto her. Ruth clave unto her. Ruth is like, ah! And she said, behold, thy sister-in-law is gone. Go back. Behold, thy sister. Oh, she said unto her, behold, thy sister-in-law is gone. Back to her people, back to her gods. Return thou after thy sister-in-law. And Ruth said, entreat me not to leave thee, or to return from following after thee. For whither thou goest, I will go, and where thou lodgest, I will lodge. And your people shall be my people, and thy God, my God. Ruth is telling Naomi, listen, don't tell me again. I've made my decision. I'm not going back. I'm going with you. If you go left, I'm going left. If you go right, I'm going right. If you freeze, I'm froze. Oh, man. I know the right word is frozen. Okay. All right. I love this. So it says, I will go. Okay. She said, entreat me not to leave thee, or to return from following after thee. For whither thou goest, I will go, and where thou lodgest, I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people, and thy God, my God. Where thou diest, I will die. She is given a strong commitment here. She's like, till death do us part. She is committed. She's like, where thou diest, I will die, and there will I be buried. The Lord do so to me, and more also, if aught but death part thee and me. I love this. Ruth is saying to her mother-in-law, listen, I'm going with you till the death. I'm that girl. I'm riding. When Naomi saw that Ruth was steadfastly minded to go with her, then she left speaking unto her. When she saw that she was steadfastly minded to go with her, then she left speaking to her. I love that. We're going to come back to that. That's Ruth chapter 1, verse 18. So the two went until they came to Bethlehem. And it came to pass when they were come to Bethlehem that all the city was moved about them. Everybody was talking. It was a lot of chitter chatter. All the city was moved about them, and they said, is this Naomi? And she said unto them, call me not Naomi, call me Mara, for the Almighty hath dealt very bitterly with me. I went out full, and the Lord hath brought me home again empty. Why then call me Naomi? Seeing the Lord hath testified against me, and the Almighty hath afflicted me. So Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, with her, which returned out of the country of Moab. And they came to Bethlehem in the beginning of barley harvest. Oh my gosh. This is such a favorite book for me because right up front, you could see that it's laced with a whole lot of loss and bitterness, anger. And we see a lot of that coming from Naomi, who is the older woman. She is like, listen, my husband's dead, my sons are dead, my life is over. I'm so bitter. She tells you all of that. She literally lists out what's going on with her emotion around all the things that's going on with her. She's grieving the loss of her husband, the loss of her sons, and now she's deciding to go back home because she's heard that the Lord has blessed the land of his people and visited them with bread. But in her decision to go back home, she now has to grieve another loss, which is letting her daughters in law go. And one of her daughters in law was like, all right, bet, I'm out. I'm going back to my mom and them. And then the other daughter in law is like, no, I'm not going anywhere. I'm vowing to stick with you until death parts us. And Naomi, she's speaking from a place of deep hurt, bitterness, loss, and grief. And she's basically trying to tell Ruth, girl, stop it. I don't want you to come with me. You're young, you're pretty, go back to your parents, get married. I'm not, life for me is done. It's over. It's rotten. I'm bitter. And she's basically, I could tell her tone is probably me like, why you want to hang around me, girl? Bye. And Ruth is responding with such a kindness and a loyalty. And she says, entreat me not to leave you. Where you go, I'm going. Where you die, I will die. And then she said, may the Lord even do worse to me if I don't keep this vow, right? Um, and so I love Ruth's resolve to be loyal to her mother-in-law. And then I love how scripture describes it. It says, when Naomi saw that Ruth was steadfastly minded to go with her, then she left speaking unto her. What I love about this, it's saying that Naomi could see that Ruth is serious about her commitment. She's a woman of her word. She's saying, I'm here till the death. So that's my word. And when you breathe, I'm going to be right there breathing, you know? And I love this because it's showing the type of character of resilience and high commitment that Ruth has. And even though Naomi is grieving and bitter and navigating a lot of loss and hopelessness, Naomi is literally hopeless. As I said, if you look at the title of this video, is like identifying hope in the darkest times. And Naomi, in her season of life, she's going through a very, very dark time because she's grieving the loss of her entire family, right? Her entire family, except herself, is now there. But in the midst of that, there's this glimmer of hope because she actually has a daughter-in-law is like, I'm not going to leave you. You're going through the most right now. I'm not leaving. Like, you lost your husband, you've lost both your sons. Your other daughter-in-law decided, you told her to go back home, and that's what she decided on. I'm not leaving you. So I love Ruth's commitment to Naomi, even though Naomi is basically pushing her away. Naomi is like, okay, get away, get away, get away, get away. And Ruth is like, no, I'm going to cling on, cling on, cling on, cling on. And what I love about this is not that Ruth is trying to get something from her, but she's just being present and decided that, no, I'm sticking with you. Like, that's my decision. It's not going to change. And it's not like she was wishy-washy about it. She was like, well, maybe I'll stick with you, maybe I will not. Because we see in verse 18, it says that when Naomi saw that Ruth was steadfastly minded to go with her, then she left speaking unto her. In other words, when you see somebody is steadfastly minded, their mind is made up about a specific thing, there's no more conversation to be had. That's it. The conversation is done. It's over. And so I want us to learn from this tonight. I know I'm learning from this tonight, is that it's important to be steadfastly minded in your decisions. Um, Especially when it comes to approaching challenging situations in life, it's important for us to be steadfastly minded on God and on His word and living His word out. Like if God's word says that I am victorious, I am more than a conqueror, even if I feel like a failure or I feel like things are not working out, okay, it might be all right if I'm feeling that way. But what I'm going to confess, this is something I'm learning. It is important to confess what is true rather than keep confessing your feelings. Okay, I might feel, because if I'm honest, tonight I did not feel like doing this live, right? I'm like, I just don't feel like it, right? I'm navigating some other things that I feel like need to, I could just not do the live tonight. But then I've already made the decision and then committed myself to this time and then committed my word to you. So for me, I need to be single minded and follow through regardless of my feelings in the moment. So I just want us to learn from Ruth, even though Ruth also is in a tough situation because Ruth also lost her father in law, Ruth lost her husband, and she lost her brother in law. So Ruth is navigating loss as well. She's grieving as well. But her outlook is actually very hopeful. She's like, no, I'm not leaving you. Like, we need our little community right now that we both know what it's like to go through the things that we're going through. But Naomi is viewing it from such a dark and lonely perspective, whereas Ruth is viewing it from a perspective of embracing in leaning into community and also choosing to be the hope that is necessary in the situation. And we'll get to see that. And I'm kind of giving it away a little bit because um, we get to see that in the following chapters. And I'm so excited because it's only 4 chapters in this book. So we'll go through it and we will be fueled with hope as we read these scriptures. And this is literally like one of my favorite books because, again, in these darkest times, when we see that one woman, she's navigating grief and hurt and loss. We see another woman, a younger woman, who is like hopeful, like, oh my gosh, life, we can live it. You know, even though we're going through hard stuff, we can live it. And there's the last thing I want to point out here is that Naomi, even, well, probably 2 more things I want to point out. Naomi, even though she was also navigating a hard situation, she heard of the Lord's faithfulness to his people. And she decided, once she heard of the Lord's faithfulness, she made a decision that was actually her taking a risk to lean into hope. And I don't even think she noticed it, but she was like, wait, the Lord blessed his people with bread? Well, let me go back home then. So she made a decision to go back home. And in her going back home, let's look at verse 22. It says, so Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, with her, which returned out of the country of Moab, and they came to Bethlehem in the beginning of barley harvest. So they came back to Bethlehem when it was popping. It was springtime, and you know how it is when it's springtime. Like the sun is coming out, the days are longer. There's a lot more endorphins going because the weather is nicer. And when you hear this word harvest, this tells you that it's a time of celebration, a time of joy, a time of enjoyment, because you get to enjoy the fruits of what has grown, and you get to glean. So it's such a hopeful moment. And I want us to just consider those things. Consider the hopeful moments of Ruth chapter 1. And we might review it again tomorrow because I don't want to just like dash through and rush through each chapter. But I at least wanted to read through chapter 1 tonight and look at, Naomi, who was just depressed, grieving, loaded down with loss, and just in her feelings about the darkness that she's navigating. But at the same time, in these scriptures, we are able to identify hope. We're able to identify, man, at least she's got her daughter-in-law. And her daughter-in-law is like, listen, I'm staying right here next to you. I'm not going anywhere. So that's a hopeful thing that we can look at. And we can see that her daughter-in-law is not wishy-washy. She's not saying, oh, I'm gonna stay with you. She's like actually committed, and she is steadfastly minded in her decision to stick with her mother-in-law. And then we see that they're arriving. Naomi, even herself, is making a good decision, a smart decision, even amidst her hopelessness, right? So that's where we can find some hope that's where we can identify some hope in the darkest times. Like she's even actually making a smart decision to go back to her community, to a place where she's known. Maybe she can reconnect with some friends, right? And then we see her coming home at a time where it's like an enjoyable season, right? So I want us to consider and meditate on this. And I want to invite you to read Ruth. We're going to read Ruth together. And there's going to be more that we bring out of this book and this story as I share with you. And I'm super excited for us to get into it together. So one question I'm going to leave you with is are you navigating a dark time, but you can take some time to like review right now what you're navigating and identify hope? Is there a dark time or a dark situation that you might be navigating currently that if you take some time to review, you can identify hope? Identify the hope that's actually in your situation. I want to invite you to do that tonight. Even take some time to journal. I want to invite you to do that because I truly believe that when we take time to invite the Lord to show us what we're missing, he shows up. He shows up and he responds and he answers us. So invite the Lord to show you where the hope is in your story, and so that you can identify it. I'm going to do the same. Until next time, be encouraged, believe God, and live. Live. I'll see you tomorrow night. Be encouraged. Ooh, be encouraged.